Welcome to today's webinar, EVs, Today or Tomorrow? How to know when it's right for your fleet. Presented by Merchants Fleet. I'm Jay Cohen, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. I encourage you to ask questions during the webinar at any point, and we will try to address them all. However, if we do not get to yours, don't worry, you will be contacted by email with a response after the event. Our presenters today are Lisa Drake. Lisa is the Program Manager for Fleet Electrification at Merchants Fleet. As part of Merchants' growing fleet electrification team, she drives electrification of fleets both internally and for clients by developing cutting-edge tools and resources for successful fleet EV adoption. Lisa brings 20 years of expertise in development and implementation of environmental innovation programs and corporate sustainability to guide fleets through their electrification journey. Her experience in managing economic development programs for the state of New Jersey makes her an asset for organizations and governments, large or small, looking for the most efficient way to begin electrification. She is a licensed professional engineer and has BS and MS degrees in civil and environmental engineering from Tufts University. Lisa was the proud winner of the 2022 Cornerstone Innovator Award from New Hampshire Business for Social Responsibility. Also with us today is William Harris. William is the president and co-CEO for Edge Auto Rental in New York. Edge Auto caters specifically to the film industry and houses over 1,000 fleet vehicles, including EVs. He began his career in 1984 at the Ford Motor Company dealership on Manhattan's West Side, working in their car rental division. After 4 years at Ford, he opened his own parent company, USave. In 2020, William and his co-CEO, Rudy, formed Chelsea Insurance, a reinsurance captive insurance company that insures all Edge vehicles. Also today we have Patrick Mitchell. Patrick is the Senior Fleet Manager for Enel North America, Inc. in Andover, Massachusetts. He manages a growing fleet of over 400 vehicles throughout the United States and Canada in support of renewable energy project construction and operations. Patrick leverages his 6+ years in fleet with over 10 years in facilities administration and property management to navigate the unique challenges of EV charger installations and the fleet electrification transition. Patrick recently won Bobbitt's Fleet Visionary of the Year Award for 2022. We also have Landon McKay. Landon is a senior fleet consultant at Merchants Fleet. With a focus on strategic accounts and EVs, Landon develops tools and resources used by fleet managers to optimize their fleet operations. He also provides in-depth analysis to help fleets on their electrification journey using customized electric vehicle feasibility assessments. Joining Merchants in 2022, Landon brings more than 8 years of consulting and account management expertise to the consulting team. Previous experience includes fleet management companies as well as for-profit and nonprofit financial institutions. Now I'll hand it over to the Merchants Fleet team.
Good day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We're starting with a question today, how to know when the time is right to start adopting EVs into your fleet. And the answer to that question isn't black and white, but one thing we do know for sure is that there's no ignoring EVs. You can't miss the headlines, the OEM announcements, the commercials. EVs are everywhere. And although it wasn't long ago that EVs were a niche product, today there's massive financial commitments being made across sectors, government, industry, and corporate, on electrification. And all OEMs have or have announced EV models. California has banned sales of gas vehicles by 2035. This is the future, and it needs to start today. And so whether your organization has made sustainability goals or has mandates to meet, or you're just curious to learn more, we're all on a learning journey when it comes to EVs. And so our goal here today is to help you better understand what goes into adopting EVs. This includes research, planning, and analysis to make a successful transition. And so the earlier you start, the better. Later on in this webinar, you'll be hearing from 2 organizations that have already begun this process who will give you some tangible insights into their experience in going electric. But first, let's talk a little bit about why your organization may be considering adopting EVs and what you need to know. We're at a tipping point with EVs for a number of reasons, and each of these factors on the screen are contributing to that. Many companies are responding to their stakeholders' call for corporate social responsibility. For many, that means setting sustainability goals and looking for ways to reduce emissions. And many companies are finding that EVs are the shortest path to emission reductions. Next, there is the carrot and stick approach coming from government policy. So for some, you may be under mandates to reduce emissions from transportation. And you also can find incentives to help you convert to EVs, rebates, and financial incentives from either a government entity or electric utility. And finally, there's the pure business reasons that may accelerate your EV adoption. And those benefits that can be gained from reducing fuel costs, lowering your maintenance costs, reducing downtime. So every company may be motivated differently, but these are all factors that are contributing to what may be the right time for you to convert to EV on your fleet. So where are you on your road to adoption? In the next slide, we'll show you the 5 steps that at Merchants, we break down the EV adoption journey. So we start with learn, because we're all on a learning journey here, and there is a lot to learn to think about EVs and all that goes into having successful transition to EVs. Next is alignment, and this is primarily internal alignment within your company, so that as you're moving forward, that everyone is coming along with a similar vision and shared goals. Third is the planning, and so this is not something to take and just do randomly, but really to put some thinking and some data behind what you're going to do and how fast you're going to move. Next would be pilot. Piloting is a great way to learn what works, what you need to know, how you need to adjust as you go forward. You can build a lot of learnings from actually piloting, get some vehicles on the road. You can start small. You can start to build knowledge internally and interest and support and awareness, and build a stronger program so that as you go to full adoption, that you take the best, you put your best foot forward based on the learnings from the pilot. And so when you break it down this way, the road to EV adoption is a little more tangible, because you can think about where you're at on this journey. Maybe you're only in learn, but congratulations, you showed up today at this webinar, and you are on that learning journey. I think what we would like to do next, I'll hand it over to Landon, and he's going to dive further into what's involved in the planning phases and how you can do successful planning for your pilot and adoption. So Landon.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. So if we're talking about why start now, one of the main factors in evaluating your transition starts with the vehicles. Right now, there are a lot more vehicles on the market across all segment types, and those numbers are growing each year. Also, many OEMs, as Lisa stated earlier, are making a priority to transition to making EVs exclusively. So the clock is really starting to tick on ICE vehicles. Cost parity, that's been a huge concern for a lot of my fleets, is also coming closer to ICE vehicles. So the Bolt, for example, which I've modeled quite a bit for clients as they transition, has seen that trend and that cost parity with a lot of its ICE counterparts. And that's holding true as well for some of the other vehicles in the larger segment, like pickup trucks as well. But generally speaking, though, many EVs are still more expensive to acquire, but looking at the total cost of ownership in many cases, the savings on maintenance and fuel, charging the vehicle make up that difference in a relatively short amount of time. And I'll show that example a little bit later in the presentation, but I think it's important to look at some of the considerations that we make when we do an adoption plan and what you should consider when developing an adoption plan as well. Next slide, please. So some of the considerations, we talked about suitability of vehicle. Is it the right vehicle for the right job? That's a huge consideration. Do you need all-wheel drive? Is the cargo space appropriate for relative EV? Current daily mileage, if we use telematics or your regular mileage, is that EV going to be able to do the job and not have to charge or stop during the day? Is it going to be able to use its single charge across the board? One big factor that we consider too, and you should consider when you're doing an adoption plan, is climate and weather. For example, I'm in Minnesota. It's very cold. It's like 10 degrees here. So on average for a state like Minnesota, you should expect about 56% of the total charge of your vehicle, the total range of your vehicle, which is drastically different than places like California or Florida with a much better weather. So some clients are choosing more agreeable climates to maybe start their adoption plan to make sure that the vehicles can get their daily range and don't have to stop during the day. Availability and ordering is another consideration. Granted, there's a lot more vehicles that are out there now, but are you able to get the vehicles? Are you able to get allocation from your manufacturer as well? Charging. What's your charging strategy? Do you have to depot charge? Are you charging at home? Is it going to be a blend of charging for your vehicle? That's a huge cost consideration. So some clients try to be cost neutral as much as possible. And when they look at depot charging, for example, that cost can range depending upon complexity from $5,000 to $100,000. So that could blow your potential budget out of the water. But that's a main consideration too. Public charging, when doing a plan, range anxiety, again, is still a concern for a lot of my clients. So mapping out, looking at where the public charging infrastructure is relative to your units, and seeing if there are charging stations on certain routes, if you need to stop and top up potentially. Most plans, I would say, don't rely on public charging, but some clients do. It depends upon the business model and business need, but that's an important factor to figure out as well, and makes you feel comfortable knowing that the job can get done during the day. CO2 reductions, obviously, that's the main driver. Is it going to reduce my CO2? Am I going to reach my goals? So when we're planning, you might set a goal of, well, I want to reduce my carbon emissions by 40% by X. Is that doable? Or do we have to scale back? Or can you actually exceed your goals as well? And cost impact. Cost impact is huge. As we said, EVs are more expensive, but if we're able to model out, and again, I'll show a quick summary of an analysis I did for a client later, that'll show kind of that cost impact. But last but not least, grants and incentives. That's going to have, again, a huge impact on potentially the bottom line of your program. There's a wide range of options, federal, there's foundation corporate grants that are different rebates and incentives. Often utilities will offer those rebates, and it's important to contact your utility companies even 2 years prior to even starting a program, and they can help you lay out some of those cost savings measures, and that can really help offset your charging infrastructure, the cost of charging a vehicle, and there's various incentives, and also the federal tax credits as well. And so detailing that across the country, we can see that there's a snapshot. I think if you want to move to the next slide, we can show a little snapshot. So looking at snapshot, rebates and incentives programs have been rolling out across the country. So it's not just California anymore. Every state is really starting to lead the charge, but it varies by state entirely. And when you're making a plan, it can really impact potentially where you're going to be rolling out a potential pilot. I have clients that's a huge factor because, again, you can see potentially in Illinois, you can get up to 80% of the charging installation cost covered. But if in a different state, you don't have that same rebate, that could really offset and cost you a lot more. So if you're thinking about pilot, navigating those grants and incentives are key to not only lowering TCO, but lowering the overall cost of a potential pilot. And many of these programs are first come, first serve. So when the money's out, it's out. and time is of the essence for some of these programs. And many of these programs can also be complicated or difficult to navigate. So ideally, you'll find someone within your organization that can be the champion of locating these incentives, applying, and following the appropriate steps, which can be difficult, but also it can be worth it, especially with some of the dollars that are involved with these programs. Or you can leverage your FMC to hopefully help you as you navigate, locate, and apply for these programs as well. But another consideration too is that, and what I hear from our grants and incentives people is that these are kind of unprecedented times with grants and incentives. So it's best to strike while the iron's hot right now. So again, putting this all together, I just wanted to share a quick example of a summary of an executive summary pilot plan that was put together for a client, showing the overall cost and CO2 impact of transitioning 169 ICE vehicles from ICE to EV. So they have various pickup trucks that are ICE and then transitioning to a Ford Lightning. So we factored in all the considerations that we discussed, be it driving habits, application, what's the weather impact, grants and incentives potentially, and highlighted a small pool of vehicles. So as we can see, the acquisition cost for those EV vehicles were much more expensive. But the maintenance fuel savings over time has a great TCO savings across the board and an actual 70% reduction in CO2. So both the cost savings and the CO2 reduction are incredible outcomes for this client. So I'm seeing this commonly. It's not necessarily always the norm, but it's definitely something to consider. But to get this point, though, takes a lot of planning. And as we discussed, following that roadmap that we laid out. But if we go to the roadmap, but not everyone, I guess, is also in the same spot on that roadmap. So some might be at the beginning of that journey. Some might be at the pilot phase. Some people might not even be thinking about it right now. Hopefully you are if you're here. But again, hopefully, we're somewhere on this journey here. But that also brings us to why we're here. So we have Patrick and William, as we introduced in the beginning. And so they're going to discuss where they're at on their journey and the path that brought them where they are today. So Lisa, I'm going to pass it back to you to introduce our guests and get the Q&A rolling.
Yes, thank you, Landon. So great. Here's what you came to hear from the stars of the show, William and Patrick. I'm really interested to hear what you have to share from your experiences today, both of you. So let's start with, if you could tell us, what were some of the driving decisions for adopting EVs in your organization? And I know each of you, your stories are quite different. So do you want to start with Patrick?
Sure. Thank you, Lisa. So our company, a major part of our business is constructing and managing renewable energy projects throughout the US and Canada. And so really a shift to electric vehicles and electrification in general is really just more of a natural progression of our sustainability and innovation journey. It's really, we kind of mention it as it's part of our DNA. And so it was not really, putting people's, arms, but, tying their arms behind their back or anything, to really push people. It was a collective effort and a top-down approach from our senior management that this is who we are, and we need to be following, in every aspect of our business, what our entire sustainability goals are as a company. And this is really a natural way to do that. So relatively easy on our end, apart from some organizations that have a much tougher road.
Great, thank you. And William, how about for you? What were the driving decisions for you?
Thanks, Lisa. I think that between myself and my partner, I think the first thing is being a believer that we have a problem, and our fleet contributes to that problem. And beside the fact that our customers want electric vehicles and they can't get to their goals until all their vendors get to their where they need to be. So I think for us, it started out by believing that we have a problem. Then we immediately started trying to figure how do we get to net zero? How do we not have to depend on fuel? So we've looked at the vehicles that we have. We contribute a lot because of our fleet. And we thought that every vehicle that we have in our fleet, if that class of vehicle exists as an electric vehicle, then we're going to go ahead and get it. So that was our planning. We kind of jumped into it because we're believers and thought that we need to have electric vehicles, and that's what we've been doing. We've been looking at whatever the manufacturers are bringing out there today, and we're replacing them with our vehicles. And that's the main driving force. And our customers love it also. They do, but there's still the anxiety out there where how do I charge this vehicle up in New York City? So
right, some unique challenges there. Well, we'll get to charging in a few minutes. Can I ask you each a little bit about buy-in? So Patrick, for you, buy-in in your organization, and then we'll come back to William. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about your customers and how you work with your rental customers on use of EVs. But Patrick, let's talk about buy-in at your organization. What did that look like?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was, I would say, a relatively easy process, just, because of the type of organization that we are. We're the North American subsidiary of a global organization, and some of the electrification efforts have already begun over in Europe, where, the climate is a little bit different than it is here in the United States. And so, overall, a buy-in from top management, it was really a top-down approach to say, this is what we must do, and let's work together to make sure that we're able to do that. The other side of the buy-in, I would say, is we have quite a great group of people that are out in the field. They're managing the wind farms, they're constructing the solar projects, and so on their side and their direct management, they have to make sure that the vehicles that they're operating are sufficient for their operations. We can't provide them a vehicle that is not safe for what they do or does not have the range, like William mentioned, to be able to reach the locations or to do a full day's work. And so the buy-in on that level has been more on education and guidance through the process, listening to questions, in some cases not knowing the answers, but either finding that information or going to experts to be able to get the information, going back to the OEMs to understand the specifications of the vehicles that we're at least looking to adopt, and providing that feedback and having that open communication with the people that we serve in the field. So it's been somewhat of a two-step approach, but at the same time, general excitement within the organization. And so people are coming at it with open mind and willingness to learn. And it's been a good growing process across the board.
Wonderful. Well, and William, so tell us a little bit about working with your customers and their interests in EVs and how you bring them along on your EV journey, because your EV journey is their EV journey.
It is. Thanks, Lisa. What we're finding out now that we have our electric vehicles and we have charging stations at our location, is I've switched over to driving an electric vehicle myself, just so I can understand some of that anxiety and what people are going through. And I find it, for me, it's a lot easier than it is for them. There is a problem finding charging stations around. So we've opened up our place for them to come back and charge. But our customers want the electric vehicles. It doesn't always work for every project that they're renting from us. If they've got a cargo van that only has 120 charging hours on it, charging miles on it, and they live 40 miles out of town, that just doesn't work for them. The only way to solve that is to have more charging stations out there for them. So we're finding that it works for some people and it doesn't work for every job. But overall, they all want electric vehicles, and we're jumping into it head first.
Right, and providing them the solutions that they need. So that's really exciting. When we talk about the journey as we broke it down, learn, align, plan, pilot, and adopt, when you think about that, was there a most important step in your journey as you were adopting EVs into your organizations? Patrick, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the pilot, I would say, was a game changer for me because it provided that experience that it's so hard to get, a good feel of the information or be fully confident in just information that you read online. You can read white papers, you can go to the OEMs, you can come and watch webinars and, get a lot of information. But until you're behind the wheel, until that you have the opportunity to drive the vehicle and understand, like William said, some vehicles may work for you and other vehicles may not. And understanding which vehicles are best for your organization and how the technology works. And so it's, once we had the opportunity to get behind the wheel, the experience gave so much confidence to be able to understand how to communicate with people. We had a very interesting experience of driving a Chevrolet Bolt from Massachusetts to Washington, D.C. and back a number of years ago before even the charging station, a number of charging stations became more prevalent. And so we learned a great deal from that experience. On the way to DC, fantastic. On the way home, not fantastic. But at the same time, I still use some of the lessons that we learned from that trip to guide decisions that we make, or to say, boy, I remember the problem that we had, or I remember the great experience that we had. So I know this is possible. We just need to work through it. And so then that gives me confidence when I'm approaching a site manager or a regional manager or even the top management, and they say, how do you know this will work? Or why should we do this? I can go in there and say, because I've done it and I know it works, rather than, well, I think, or I feel, or my fleet management company did some analysis and they say it will work, but I don't know. Having the car in front of you, having your hands on the wheel gives you tremendous experience. And in our view, it's given quite a lot of confidence to be able to move forward.
Nothing like getting behind the wheel.
Absolutely.
William, you have something to add on that? What was an important step in your journey?
We kind of just jumped right into it. We were just believers and realized that, we're gonna try to lead and as a smaller company in the rental world, we thought that we're just gonna jump right into it. And now we're most of our time is spent just convincing customers that there are charging stations out there. You have to change your whole mindset about gassing up a vehicle. You no longer have to go or think that when you get to the gas station, oh my God, I got to fill it up because I won't be back here for another week. That all has to go out. That you don't have to gas up and fill up all the way each time. You just need to do a little bit of planning right now in advance if you're leaving town. If you're around the city, there are more charging stations than you believe. And once you start looking for them, you'll find out, oh my God, they're actually everywhere, especially here in New York City. We have quite a bit of charging stations there that no one knows about. And you don't know that until you actually drive an electric vehicle and take the shot at it. I tell everybody, I go, we've got millions of cars in New York City, and I yet to see one of them run out of gas on the street. And we have one gas station in Manhattan. I mean, we have one gas station. We used to have 50, now we've got one. So they laugh at it, and
yeah. Right. It is a mindset and things that we learn as we go ahead. And so thanks for that thought. Did you have either you have moments along the journey where you felt stuck and what did you do to move forward past a hurdle?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself and for Nell. I mean, there's been a few times along the journey that we've felt stuck, or I've felt stuck, I would say. You know, one of the considerations within our company, safety is right on par with our sustainability and innovation goals. And so we have strong safety requirements and safety feature requirements within our vehicles. And so making sure that we were providing a vehicle that met those safety goals and also met the operational requirements of teams. We're in very rural locations throughout the US and Canada. And so trying to make sure that any vehicle that we sourced provided the functionality that the teams needed. And in a lot of cases, we didn't feel that was available until quite recently. Certainly the change in or the move forward with the electric trucks has been really a big game changer for us. Providing the off-road capability that our teams need as they work on transmission line areas or off-road situations. It provides that assurance and that safety that they'll be able to take the vehicle where they need to go. And so that certainly has been a big part. Certainly the supply chain has been an issue for all of us. And even as we try to move forward, then vehicle availability has been a challenge. So in some cases that has caused us to be a little bit stuck, but at the same time allows us to look for other opportunities within the market that maybe we hadn't considered before, or to just use that time to pause, do some additional research, and maybe work on, say, charging station expansion, or work in other areas that you're not sitting and doing nothing, but you're working on the same project, but in a different capacity, and maybe jumping ahead on one area that you hadn't planned on doing while you waited for supply chain or other considerations to become available. So we've faced some challenges along the way, but feeling stuck and giving up is really not an option. So once you feel stuck, then it's just working through how do you get yourself out of feeling that way, and working with the experts to really understand if they know any resources or capabilities that would be able to help you with being able to move forward in some capacity.
Right, you don't have to be on this journey on your own. Do you have hurdles that you faced, William, that you'd like to share?
Except educating the customers. I think at this point for us, it's about just getting information about charging stations and having that information available to customers. That's how to move forward, because those are the folks that are driving the vehicles, and they need our help to make this transition for them easier. So that's kind of what we spend our time doing, just making sure we're aware of where charging stations are, so we have the answers.
Right, in the public space. Can you talk a little bit how you approached charging infrastructure on your own properties?
We for years, I'd say probably for the last better part of 2 years, we've been trying to figure out how to bring these electric chargers, what company to use, and who to go with. And we spoke with so many people, and over the years, even before the COVID time, we came to the conclusion that we were going to wait until we got somebody on board that really knew how to do this right, because we realized that everybody that we talked to looked at this as a new business, right? For them, they were looking at creating charging stations, and eventually they'll be the new Exxon or something. I kind of got that feeling talking to a lot of people that offered the service of installing charging stations. And I gotta say, when I came with when I spoke to one of the guys that I work with there at Merchants a lot, he told me what Merchants was doing. I thought right away, okay, this is a reputable company. Let's go with these guys. I think that these guys will know more about this and they'll help us. And I was right. the whole idea of installing the charging stations here and getting Con Edison involved and getting even some of the manufacturers involved with the fleet that we have. They helped us along that way. I mean, a lot of it, understanding how many charging stations we need, how much power we need, just helping us along that way. So for us, we wanted to do this for a while, and we found the right company. That's not that helped us.
Yeah, finding trusted partners is definitely key in this new territory. Now, Patrick, is kind of unique for you. Tell us a little bit about charging from your perspective and your company's approach.
Sure. So we have a business line within our company called NLX Way, and their whole purpose, their business model is to manufacture charging stations. So we have an in-house solution that we've been able to leverage the team at NLX Way to really be our guide, our teacher in the infrastructure, the product, and how it works, how we can use it, how it can provide for our needs. And then because it's an in-house solution, we are just working together to identify the locations where we need charging stations, our offices, our plants, and other areas, and just communicating that in-house with our own teams to just set up installation pathways, timelines for implementation. And so we didn't have to go through what William just described in evaluating a lot of other EV charger options, but really just understanding our own solution and how to work together intercompany and to be able to meet the needs that we have. So certainly, again, we had an easier road in that regard than I think William did, and probably a lot of people did. But certainly there's opportunity out there for everyone. It's just working to try to identify the best solution that meets your needs.
Right, great. So can you wrap up a bit about the benefits that you've seen so far on your journey and with the adoption that you've done?
Sure, and I would say that we're early on in our process, and so certainly the supply chain is kind of dimmed our implementation slightly with some canceled orders and things. So, but we are pressing forward and working to implement EVs as much as we can wherever we can. And so I would say one of the biggest benefits that we've seen is just the excitement throughout the organization. I had somebody that I was talking with the other day in Oklahoma, and we were working through a situation, and he said, "Hey, when am I getting my electric truck?" And he's excited. The teams throughout the U.S. in the field, they're excited. They want the products, and they know that we're working towards that. And so there's just a general buzz throughout the organization from, again, top down. And so that's been one of the biggest benefits. And I would say kind of 1 and 1A of that is just a pride. Our teams love what they do. They are, incredibly talented and are satisfied to a great deal with what they're producing with the renewable energy. And with an introduction of an electric vehicle to be operated on that plant is just a huge sense of pride for the managers, for the operators, and everyone throughout the organization to say, we're walking our walk. As soon as safety and capability have met, and there's a vehicle available for us to be able to implement to manage our sites, what better way to manage a renewable energy site with a zero emissions vehicle? So there's tremendous pride and excitement. We're just excited to see what's ahead.
Great. Benefits you want to call out, William?
Yeah, I got to agree with Patrick. There is a lot of excitement around it, and we're excited to be a company that's heading in that direction. We're excited about it. There are challenges, but we feel very excited about where we are with it, right now as we go forward. There's cancellations, like Patrick said. Yeah, we've experienced those too, but we're in for the long haul. So
Yeah. Well, excitement may be hard to measure, but it certainly is valuable. So let's wrap. Before we go to the audience questions, just one last one is, what piece of advice do you have for fleet managers or business owners who are considering adopting EVs?
So I would say start as soon as possible. We looked at the roadmap, that Merchants has shared, and start that process. There's a wealth of information available online. Your fleet management company, I'm sure, could provide a significant amount of information to even answer your own questions and help you understand how you start the process. But even as Landon had mentioned before, with some of the grant programs, starting those conversations with grant providers or local utility companies, he mentioned 2 years ahead. And so we did an installation at our corporate headquarters, and we finished the installation. We commissioned the charging station on the very last day that the funding was available, and so we rushed through that process because in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, where I work, we had winter conditions that impacted our ability to get into the ground and excavate and to work with concrete and asphalt. And so that put some undue pressure on our timelines that pushed us up towards the completion timeline. And in the end, we wish that we had started the process a little bit earlier, because we might have been able to work with the local utility and our property manager to increase the size of electrical transformers on the property to provide additional capacity that could have been used for a larger implementation of EV chargers. And so, if you start earlier than maybe you think that you need to or should, that's going to give you time for either additional research that you need to do to push a project forward, or it may provide you extra time that you didn't know that you needed, because you'll face that roadblock within the project, and you need some extra time to be able to complete the project on time, or there may be a change or a supply chain issue, or just a change in charging station model, or something that you need to factor into the discussion that having that extra time will do. And really, just to jump on a different point there, so many companies are moving in an ESG and sustainability fashion. There's commitments being made all over the business world. And so the other aspect of this continues to be the supply chain. As more and more companies are looking to adopt EVs, it's still going to put a challenge on that market, where more and more vehicles are being ordered, that there may be less and less available for everybody. So the sooner you start the process, in my opinion, the better it will be for you to accomplish your goals.
It's good advice. Will, you want to add any advice there?
Yeah, I have to agree with Patrick. Start immediately, because the whole dealing with your electric company, it's years. It's not days or weeks. It's years. Because they're still trying to figure out what it is that you need. So you need to give time for that, for sure. And there's a lot more to just the vehicles for us. We're also obviously now we're using more power, because now we're charging vehicles. So we're even going further and trying to figure out how do we install solar panels so we can get better power. We're going all out. In every location we can. We're installing solar panels, trying to get power that way, and even looking into batteries that we can store power, so that we can offer, faster charging stations with the power that we need, without depending on the utility companies.
Mm-hmm.
All those. There's a lot to learn about going here, but it all starts with being a believer that we have a problem and start addressing it that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you both for that advice. And, I'll just reiterate, starting early and getting your utility engaged early. But I'll also say that I think what we've found often is that while it may take years to get some projects through to upgrade electrical capacity, there's other sites with electrical capacity today that at least can get you started and may get you well on your way on your journey. So, William is a great example of that. He's got big aspirations to bring in new electrical capacity to do even more on his sites, but he's already got some chargers there operational, in a matter of weeks. So it doesn't always have to be years. So don't let that scare you away from getting started.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely.
So I guess we could turn to some of the questions from our audience.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Yeah, we do have some few minutes left, so we try and get some of the questions that came in. First question, going to guess this is for Patrick and William. Can you talk about how the adoption of EVs, if the adoption of EVs has disrupted your operations?
So we haven't implemented with our operations teams yet. So that's kind of that next step in our organization. So we haven't seen that. I would say generally, we are trying to take great care to make sure that the decisions that are made for the vehicles that are implemented provide the least opportunity for disruption. I think we all agree that there will be a disruption at some point, and it's just working through the education process and the pre-planning to make sure that those disruptions are kept to a minimum, and that we have say contingency plans in place so that if somebody forgot to plug their vehicle in, say overnight, and it has there's no charge, no battery remaining the next day, that we have something in place for that. So in our context, we're not fully there from an operational standpoint, but trying to plan as much as possible to prevent that.
For us at Edge, no, we've seen no disruptions. We've done less oil changes in the last few months. I'm really excited about that. That we've got vehicles that we don't have to do oil changes on. It's great. And when you have that fleet of electric vehicles and you're in the car rental business, that's very exciting. And for all you guys who out there who wants to add it to their rental fleet, it's exciting that you don't have to plan an oil change on a vehicle.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Next one. This one for Lisa and Landon. There are over 3,000, approximately 3,000 utilities in the U.S. How ready are these grids to accommodate the demand for EV charging around the country?
Well, I would say that the grid is going to be in transition, and certainly going to need investment and upgrade, and that's going to have to happen on a number of levels. But really, this comes down to a site by site, location by location, utility by utility approach in terms of what you need to support your fleet and where the utility is at and what the electrical situation is at any given property. So this is a hands-on kind of, while it's a big picture question, the answers really lie in site by site analysis and utility by utility approach.
Okay, Landon, do you have anything to?
No, I would agree with that. I mean, and for the most part, I know it's a macro question, but to Lisa's point, it's kind of, when you're developing a plan, you're meeting with a utility company, they should be able to give you a detailed report of, what does the grid look like? What's the power capacity for a certain site location? I think, investments again are being made, but a lot of the smart chargers and connected chargers are hoping to help alleviate some of those grid issues. I think there's work to be done, but I think that's what's also going to be helping, demand and charging as well.
I'll just jump in there too and just highlight what William had said before about looking to install solar panels to feed their EV chargers, that there's opportunities there as well where you're not relying on full grid power, or maybe your grid power is your backup source and your primary is a solar array or a wind installation or something that would provide a renewable source or just an off-grid source that you wouldn't have to rely on that. And I know a good company that might be able to help you with that if you get that.
Okay. Next question from one of the people is a fleet manager, and they want to add EV vehicles to their fleet, and they're asking what would be the runtime on them, as some cars would run 16 hours a day. I'm not sure if that's clear enough for you to answer, but that's how they worded the question.
Let's say it's not. It depends on a lot of factors, I guess I would say, and I can let Landon jump in because I think he thinks about this a lot with our clients, and it's really about looking at the use case of the vehicle. What's the right match from an EV perspective? What's the battery size on that vehicle? How do you drive it? Is this highway driving? Is it city driving? Is there a lot of idling involved? So there's a number of questions that come into play. Do you want to expand on that, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you want to look at is, what's the average daily mileage? What's the max daily mileage too for suitability, especially as we talked about earlier, where are you in the country? Is weather going to be an impact as well to that daily mileage? So all of those things factor in. And then how much time do you have to also, if it's running 16 hours a day, how much time do you have to charge that vehicle afterwards until it goes back into use again? And that's going to also impact the type of charger, or if it's able to charge fast enough. Certain particular vehicles might not be suitable yet because maybe the range isn't there, you're using them too much, or the average daily mileage is there, or you're just running them too long, and you might not be able to have enough recoup time to maybe charge that vehicle. So all those things factor in when we're looking at vehicle by vehicle, what's really suitable for an EV conversion. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, thanks. This one for William and Patrick. As your fleet has adopted EVs across different classes, are you finding challenges in aggregating visibility data into the daily operations for your fleet? Similar to the Apple versus Android model, it seems like EVs all operate on a proprietary OEM-designed visibility platform for vehicle health and operations. How do you consolidate visibility across different EV makes and models to make daily operations efficient?
So that's not really something that I've gotten too deeply into. So I don't know that I can really answer that question very well. We use one charging station provider, our in-house solution. So all of our data capturing is within one EV charger platform. But I don't know, William, if you have experience on implementation across the board there.
Yes, we do. We actually we have different OEMs we work with, and one of them actually you can bring in outside vehicles onto the platform at a cost. So yeah, it is possible to either with the electric charging company or with the OEMs. Either one of them right now that we work with can give you the data you need, and they can actually bring in vehicles onto the platform from outside of what they manufacture.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, is there anything else? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I just said yeah. It exists. You can bring them all together. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end of the hour, so I think we'll just wrap up. Oh, wait, maybe we can try and get one more in. This one looks like it's for Patrick and William. How did you think about managing the cost of fleet electrification?
Well, so in our side, certainly there is that upfront cost that, the vehicles themselves are expensive. But as we talked about with operations, operating the vehicle is significantly less expensive. And one of the things that we had done as we researched implementation in our operations side, again, where we're in rural America, we used an average that's a very conservative average of about a 45-minute round trip journey to a gas station that would be off of our plant level. And so as we worked on that, identified how many times we get gas per vehicle per year, we had identified, again, very conservatively, that just replacing vehicles with an electric vehicle and no longer going to the gas station would provide 25 man hours per vehicle per year. And so there are benefits outside of just the financial, the straight financial, that the vehicles can provide. But at the same time, again, as we look into upfront costs versus operating costs, that number does get much more palatable as you work through the process. And then again, there's additional advantages as you go forward, especially as we talk about incentives that are available that help drive that cost even lower. So that's certainly been a part of our journey.
Part of our planning in doing this, actually, one of the first things we started about was obviously the cost. And we knew that there would be a lot of upfront money involved. So what we did was we actually, this comes from starting now, if you go electric, it's probably the source. There are banks out there right now that have allotted money toward going green. And now's a good time to talk with your regular bank that you work with. And they are financing these projects for you. And we have found our bank that will help us do that. So it's a non-issue for us when it comes to coming up with the money to install these charging stations.
Okay, well, great. Thanks for all that detail. Like I started to say, yes, that is all the time we have for today, and we did get a lot of good questions. So just want to remind people who did ask a question that unfortunately wasn't able to be answered on the webinar, we will be following up via email after this webinar to answer your question individually. We hope that you all enjoyed today's webinar. I want to again thank Lisa, William, Patrick, Landon, and Merchants Fleet for today's presentation. I also want to mention that this webinar will be available on demand on the Automotive Fleet website, and that's located at automotivefleet.com/webinars. Thank you again for attending, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you.